Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Champions Podcast. You have me, Heather, and
Champ. So
you
we're glad to
also
have you.
have MJ with us today. And we're so excited to be able to have her here and her share her testimony and just all the things that have gone on in her life and just where she is today. So welcome to the podcast, MJ.
Thank you for having me, guys.
So, where do we kind of begin with your story? Because obviously, you have a lot to tell, and we're excited to hear it. Uh, Starting, I guess, maybe with your childhood, like how was your, because obviously we know that you've had health concerns and stuff as you've continued through life. Kind of, did you have a normal childhood? I mean, I say the word normal, but obviously with us, our normal was our normal. But how was life? Were you able to kind of be okay without dramatic health circumstances at the time? And when did it start?
So for me, it started in Madrid. I was born in Spain,
Mhm.
and at 6 months old, I had what they thought was RSV. And at the time, the doctors told my mom, "Hey, she's going to get a lot worse before she gets better." And so they knew what to expect. They treated me accordingly, but I never got better. And so that's when they started to suspect that maybe something else was lingering or brewing underneath the surface that they hadn't discovered yet. It was then that they did a lot of testing and they came to the conclusion that I had cystic fibrosis, and that was at 6 months old. At that point, they didn't have too much care for that in the area where I was situated, and they actually advised my mom that the care would be better in the United States. That's when we emigrated, and we came to South Florida. And that's where I was able to establish a lifelong team along the way down at the University of Miami. And then I transferred to Joe DiMaggio in Hollywood, Florida. And during that time, during those seasons, I was pretty stable. I didn't have any restrictions at all, other than, as you know, make sure you take your enzymes, our regular nebulizers, our chest PT, like all that was always, I was very compliant, very compliant. But it was pretty steady, and I was able to be pretty athletic because as kids with CF, they told us make sure you try to do exercise to kind of help with the mucus movement and stuff like that. But I didn't have like my first tune up until I was actually 7. And during that time, you're gonna have to excuse my dog wiggling in the background.
It's fine. I
Um,
got mine sitting here too.
yeah. And so at 7, I had my first, what we would come to know as tune up. And I didn't have another one again until I started, I would say, puberty, which I've heard is like the hard onset for CF symptoms, especially in females. So I didn't start maybe regularly having tune-ups until I was like 12, 13.
And
And
what
then,
I want to say too before we continue, what an amazing mother to just say that you knew that, because I've heard that care in the other countries for CF has always been a difficulty. What an amazing person your mom is, just to say, okay, I've got to do what I've got to do and move, to another country just to establish care with you. How did that make you feel knowing? I mean, obviously, you might have not known when you were little, but as you grew to know that decision, how did it make you feel just to know that she took that step? Because, I mean, Florida's not a bad place to live, is it?
no, no, it was actually my mother with her mother. So my grandmother, both of them were tag teaming. And um, I'm proud to say that I was born within a circle, a very small circle of very strong women that had to flee very difficult circumstances. And we're talking about like governments, and my mom and grandma fled Cuba. So um, And that's a whole story within itself. But these are women that know that they have to keep fighting to stay alive, even without an illness. So when I popped up, they were just like, all right, grab your bags, let's keep going. And so I feel very empowered by that, very loved. And I know that that kind of runs within me. So I was never afraid when we headed towards transplant. I had that same mentality that was kind of instilled in me, that you got to grab and go wherever it is that life takes you, where God takes you to save your life. Because I really do feel as if God is sovereign in all this, and He obviously brought me to where I needed to be.
Hmm. And I think too with CF, we kind of have that mentality of flight or flight. Like we're always knowing that, okay, well, today might be okay, but tomorrow we might have to really, really fight. And so I don't know that there's ever a time that even through transplant, you might have better chapters, but you're constantly, I guess, in a fight mode of that survival. Maybe it's taking medicines, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's just trying to stay well and at the same time live life. And a lot of people don't realize just how much is involved in our daily life. I mean, I always say we make it look so well, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes that people don't realize
Yeah.
it takes. I mean, how was it for you when you had to go through transplant and like when it first came up? Because some people obviously it's like life shattering news. And then some of us kind of were like, okay, yeah, we kind of know that's on the horizon. So we have time to accept it. How was it for you?
I've always been a like a planner. And so I've always planned for things that might not happen, that people in my family call me like the worry worm and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, the worry worm has done pretty good at staying alive. So basically, we kind of got an inkling when a couple things kind of fell in line. We were living at a farm at that time in West Palm Beach. We had a pretty good amount of land for the both of us, my husband and I, because we don't have children. And we had some farm animals, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And just one day in Bible study, the Lord was pointing me to the Word in a way that was starting to make me pray about my future and where we were headed with my future. And so after confirmation through prayer and through the Word of God, I literally went to my aunt and I said, I think we need to sell our farm. And she said, what? I said, yeah, I think the Lord's pointing at like us taking our riches, from here and like prioritizing them in other areas. And then she goes, well, why would he do that? And I go, the only thing I can think of being human and being sick and being me was it has to be for transplant. And at the time, your PFTs as you grow older, they're kind of diminishing. You catch a cold, you catch anything, and you lose permanent lung function because, as you know, the lungs don't regenerate. So this was a battle of like, here we go, here we go. And I'm just holding on, going, what is going on? But at the same time, I'm trusting in God. And at the same time, I'm trusting in my prayer warriors and my mentors and people that are older than me that kind of can speak life and know, like, if he's calling you to do this, you obey. Don't hesitate. And so at that point, we sell our farm. And that was a big thing because everybody around us that didn't understand was kind of asking, like, did they lose it? Like, were they being, financially irresponsible? And I was literally like, no. But then again, it's like, it's kind of hard to explain. We're doing this for something that hasn't even happened yet. So God definitely prepared me through that season, and specifically through his word. And so when it came up, there's so many instances of me just being prepared. Once we moved out of the farm, we moved back in with my parents who live an hour away from where my husband and I have lived together, married, and where his job is at. So he's a pastor. And at the time, we were just in ministry here, and he was pastoring a church that we're still at right now. And so we moved an hour away and he would make the drive. So at my parents' house, my mother and I started doing like very intense exercise outside, and my pulmonary lung function was actually increasing. And we thought, like, okay, well, we know you sold the farm, but you're here now and you're actually doing well. And for a moment, we thought, maybe this isn't going towards transplant. Maybe this was all a scare. Maybe, and I didn't even care that I had sold the house. Even if it was for that at this point, it was just like, maybe we beat it. Maybe we don't have to do this. And all of a sudden, on my parents' anniversary, I'll never forget, I started wheezing. And so I thought, let me go to the hospital that I've always gone to, my local hospital down there. And I got admitted. And lo and behold, I had pneumonia. And from there, I didn't get out of the hospital for about 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And that's when kind of I lost a lot. Like I lost everything in my body crashed. My kidneys had kind of crashed. My colon backed up. I was coughing blood. I mean, it was like, I'm talking about, like you said, from one day to another. It wasn't even like I had been sick for a long, I was exercising out there doing like, all kinds of shenanigans. And all of a sudden I'm coughing blood and everything's just, everything crashed. It was at that point that the doctor started coming in to my room with different like paperwork, letting me know, here are your centers, here's what's available. You can, choose from all of these, but then again, you have to wait for insurance and to see which location will be preferable because, as you know, we have to travel. And so out of state would be a bit hard for me because I live in South Florida, so it was a bit far. And so by those means, I can tell you that I was prepared, but it was partly because of my personality and partly because God really walked me through it.
And I want to give Champ the opportunity to ask a question so I don't hog the mic, because especially when you said about your husband and the pastor stuff. So I know he's got a question that he
So
wants to ask.
there's a lot of things that I kind of heard from you, MJ, from the start that kind of were they spiked, and a lot of times I think one of the gifts that you have is the sense of your slowness in telling the story. But just the first word that got to my attention was empowerment, and how you talked a lot about that, just that will and that drive. What does that mean to you, and how has that kind of served you well, both in this aspect of life, but as you've gotten older and even in maturity?
So I think for me, empowerment, I've seen it through God's sovereignty and placing strong, strong women before me as an example of them having to shed whatever materialism. I mean, they've even had to leave family behind at some points in the hopes of, recruiting their family again, in the case of Cuba. And beyond that, because I was able to visit Spain again in December for the first time since I was born. I had never been back. And so we went all the way back to where, like, I'm talking about 6 generations. And we were able to see tombs and people and visit. And you see that same will in the women, where you see them have a good head on their shoulders and you see them, their willingness to survive and do whatever it takes to get ahead. And not in a malicious greed kind of way, but in a let's go, drop everything you don't need, which is most of everything, because all we need is the Lord, and move forward. And so you see that over and over and over again. And even in the mothers that we have going back that weren't believers, you see God work through them. And in the case of my grandmother, which I'm thankful, she's the one that she was really the risk taker that helped my mom move around. She wasn't a believer until, unfortunately, she was on her deathbed. And I would share the gospel with her and share the gospel with her to the point where she accepted. And I got to see that. And so you see that God working in everything, just giving him enough time to kind of see it through. Because sometimes we get too impatient without, we don't see fruit and we think like, oh, this is doomed or whatnot. But if we give him a little bit of time, he usually sometimes shows us, why things happen the way they did.
I love that.
And
And I want to say too, like, what's it been like for you before Champ asked the next question? How's it been for you for the transition from being to like before, obviously, transplant stuff to now in this phase and kind of like seeing God work in this phase of life? I mean, because I know for me, I look back and go, did that really happen? And then it's like, that almost sounds like fiction. It sounds so crazy, but you know it actually happened to you because, like you said, night and day. And then, of course,
Yeah.
transplant is like a total transformation. So, what has it been like for you in the second half of life with kind of seeing God's will through that?
Yeah. Well, my transplant situation got pretty gnarly. I'm sure a lot of ours do because of that window that we have to be transplanted in. And let's just say, like, during even the transplant process, like the day of I was like touch and go. Like, it was like I had already said goodbye to everybody. I don't remember half the people that got there before my transplant to see it through. And once again, on the operating table, and um, a nurse asks me if I want to hear music. And I'm like, what? And we're here waiting for the lungs to arrive. And, at that point, I can breathe like 1 second out, 1 second in. That's about as far as I'm going. Can't give me anything to kind of like numb me, even though I'm as calm as a cucumber. I always tell people I was calmer at that moment than I am on most days on this side. Like it was just such a thing. It was such a God thing. And and so I say, okay, sure. His name was Paul. And I say, okay, sure, Paul. Like, I guess I'll listen to For King and Country because I had only known one song by them, which is Fight On, Fighter. And all of a sudden, I'm there on the bed just thanking God for all the bad things that have ever happened in my life. Like, just being thankful because in his sovereignty, like, I'm going home. Like, we're good, right? We're good. I did it. Well done. And then all of a sudden, the song comes on and it's called It's Not Over Yet. I had never heard it, but every word that I could hear, I was like, this is happening. This song is literally being written as my life is happening because here we are in the winter. I'm laying on this bed in the winter and he's talking about it being winter. And like, I'm just like, whoa. So after the first chorus, it's not over yet, just when you think you're finished. I'm like, God, does that mean I'm going to wake up? Because statistically, they tell you like 10% die on the table, 10% die on the table. I mean, they told me that a lot. And when I got to transplant, it was a bit too late. Um, I had an infection, a raging infection, and I wasn't supposed to be operated on. And they just really went to bat for me. And so, transplant, the process of transplant, um, but waking up from transplant's the real battle. And the daily battle and transplant is like I laugh now because it has to be a joke, right? And everybody around me knows. And I'm like, I'm just trying to stay alive. Like when I'm trying to wash things and my eyes go like this when people touch things that I'm about to like grab or somebody coughs, that I feel horrible about that. And I go, and I put on my mask just because it's not a judgment on them. It's, oh gosh, like
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again. Like I barely got through the first time. I really did. And so it post-transplant is very hard. And it's very hard compared to pre-transplant, not at the point where you're suffocating. I'm talking about like cystic fibrosis is cakewalk
Mm-hmm.
compared to post-transplant.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anything that happens, you don't even know what it is. It's like you have some weird, you're like, oh no, what is that? And you go to the doctor and they're like, well, that's, and it's a whole new set of rules and parameters
Mm-hmm.
and illnesses. And not only are we now kind of like not only do we have to deal with our own cystic fibrosis illness, right? On top of now our immunodeficiency status, we have to deal with, oh gosh, we're getting older. So now I have kidney stones, Heather. And kidney stones, Heather, is like the messiest ER visit I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, yeah, I had that. And while I was waiting for my kidney and did not know it, all of a sudden went up to my bathroom and was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have a fever and can't breathe. And, as you said, transplant, we're not thinking we have a kidney stone. We're thinking maybe I've got a virus. And go to the hospital and they're like, you have this big of a centimeter stone in you and we have to take it out. Okay, I guess we'll do that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a joy. It's a joy to have transplant. I mean,
Oh yeah.
obviously we wouldn't be,
Oh
but it's like you said, it's unpredictable. At least with CF, we know, okay, it's probably infection, it's probably pneumonia. Anytime
yeah.
you
Right.
get something with us, it's like, is it a cold? Is it a virus? Is it rejection? Did I get around somebody sick? Did I
Yeah.
just pick up to like it drives you crazy sometimes.
My Rolodex now, I feel like a doctor. I can watch the pit and I know exactly what is going on before they say it. And we get a kick out of that. And I'm like, this is kind of funny, but it's kind of not. Because, like, and so post-transplant, I'm immensely grateful. Grateful doesn't even cover it. Like
Mhm.
it's such a joy, it's such an honor, right? But the task of maintaining it is very hard for those of us who are compliant and who are fighters and want to continue because every day it's a new little like, what is that? And what is this? And what is that? And it really mentally wears on you, especially the first couple years. I struggled a lot with like PTSD
Mhm.
I
from,
was about to ask that. Is that part of that kind of, is that fight or flight? I mean, is that what that is? It's the post transplant for both of you. I mean, just the, oh my goodness, I've been given this kind of the second chance in life, and now I've got it. So I've got to do everything that I can to hold it and to make sure that. So is it more the PTSD, or is it just the trauma that you went to before or went
Well,
through before?
well, I can speak on my behalf. It's probably I don't know if MJ's would be the exact same, but mine is more so from the medical part of what I went through. So like I can remember life support. I can remember, oh gosh, this narrowing moment. Like I don't really remember like needles and all that kind of stuff. It's all about in that moment, the fear, the uncertainty. That's what I remember. And where like if I walked in a room and heard a certain machine beeping, I'd go, oh, that's that machine. So is that the same for you, MJ?
yeah, it's funny you say the beeping thing because when I went back to do my treatments because I'm allergic to sulfa, so I had to do those like heavy duty like aerosol treatments once a month after. Just fine and dandy walked into the hospital, my local hospital, and heard the beeping of the machines and had a moment. And here I am, being raised, we consider ourselves being raised in a hospital. So pre-transplant, we don't really notice the trauma, but I will say it is accumulating at that point. It is in fact a factor. It just hasn't exploded on us yet. So for me, when I woke up from transplant, I didn't sleep for 5 days and I had to be put on a CPAP. And when you don't even know how to breathe because they don't connect all the nerves in your lungs, so you're there being told, breathe, 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 and you're just like this depends on me. God forbid I fall asleep and I don't tell myself to breathe, and then I die. So
Mm-hmm.
everything for me is like, am I gonna die? First time I caught the flu post transplant, I called the team and I was like, am I gonna die?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, MJ, you're not gonna die. And everything is like, am I gonna like, and I don't, again, everybody around me gets serious. I'm like, no, laugh about it. But I mean, really, am I gonna die? Like, I'm trying not to die here. So it's very traumatic. The pain, I remember the pain I felt when I woke up. and not being able to move. And you want to just come out of your body and you can't because you're tied down. And nothing can touch that pain because I was holding back so much CO2, I think it is, that they told me, we can give you pain meds, but we'll have to re-intubate you. Or we can move forward, but you need a CPAP to get it all out without pain meds. And I chose to move forward. And at that moment, I cried for like 12 hours on the CPAP, and I just rewatched a movie because the colors and the sounds were kind of soft and gentle and were kind of soothing to me. And that's how I spent the whole first night. And then after that, it was like, it was pain. You couldn't sleep. I had pillows everywhere. You can't just get up. Um, and again, you can't leave your body.
Yeah, and that's
So
so weird. It's so weird because I can remember too, like you're so sedated, but yet you're aware of what's going on. But it's like you said, you're almost like trapped. 'Cause it's like you don't know how to move your body at that point. And then your diaphragm, you're trying to learn how to use it and everything. And it is a lot. And I think, we show the parts of transplant, but in those moments, I don't think anything could ever fully describe what it's like until you're in that position. And I know that I remember watching this video one time. It said, yeah, this person just woke up and went right to breathing. It was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I'm thinking, that certainly did not happen for me. I had to learn how to breathe. Like I woke up and thought, okay, well, this feels different. Like I can breathe, but I don't really know what I'm doing at this point. I just know I'm here. And then in the coming days, it kind of comes to you. But I mean, you're so sedated. I like when they say, well, what year is it? What month is it? What's your name? And I'm thinking, well, I think I'm Heather, but I'm not really sure at this point. I mean, but what would you say to someone going through it, like whether they're Christian or whether they're struggling on the fence with that? Because obviously it doesn't take a health crisis to come to God. What would you say for the advice for people just kind of walking through maybe a challenge in their life of that mentality you said of just one foot in front of the other, keep going, fight for survival, don't give up, don't look back. Even like you said about selling your farm, don't look at it as, oh, well, I'm having to sacrifice this. It's like it's material things. Like get rid of it, move forward. What would you say to people that maybe are struggling with that in their life?
just, our lives are worth more than anything else. And our journey with the Lord is everything. And I think that we have this luxury in Western societies to choose to believe in God or not. Like, everybody has that right. But when we're all suffering, where do we go realistically? And so I believe suffering is the ultimate, it equalizes, it's the equalizer. Because everybody's good until something they don't expect happens. And then what? How are you going to cope? And so I always let people know whether you believe in God or not, He still made you. And He made you with a purpose. And He made you loving you, knowing that leaning on Him and trusting Him would fulfill you and be the ultimate fulfillment for you. Because we all worship something. Like in our hearts, we're meant to worship. So if we're not worshiping God, what are we worshiping? Ourselves? Idols, materialistic things that are going to fall apart, false gods. And so I always let people know, like, whether you believe in Him or not, He made you. He loves you. And He sent His Son to die for you. And so a lot of people um, with CF that I've encountered, especially when I was younger, they were kind of angry at God. And they would kind of blame God for like, why did you give me CF or why? And they were in tough situations. We all are. But it's not just CF. Everybody has their own cross to bear. Everybody has their own CF per se. Something's going to come along their life and wreck them. And it's all about our faith in him. It's not how we handle it, it's about how we trust him. He handles it. It's, do we trust him? You know, and I think when we try to do it on our own and we get to the end of ourselves, that gives us an opportunity to look up and go, okay, I managed to mess this all up, and obviously I couldn't make it work. And maybe that's the point where people give up and go, okay, let me just trust. Let me just call out in the name of Jesus. Let me see. And God shows up. He doesn't force himself, but God shows up for us. And so I have a lot of people I've helped guide through transplant. Um, and that's always been a main conversation. It's, we're here temporarily to fulfill a purpose. And what do you think happens after? Because we're all going to die, with CF or not, we're all dying. It's just you and I knew what we were dying from initially, you know? And so we more or less, we had an urgency to kind of get our things in order. But I just, relationally is the best way to share the gospel, to watch people and be around them and let them see your life and let them see who you are. And that way, you're not lying, you're showing them, you're sharing your world with them. They're able to see the God that you speak of and believe in and worship, what he does and who he is.
So, MJ, you're talking a lot about the suffering aspect of things, and that kind of one of the things that captured my attention, not only when we talked about the PTSD kind of transplant and post-transplant, and you even talked about laying on the table during the transplant and remembering all the things that you had struggled with and the suffering that you had went through and thanking the Lord for that. Talk a little bit more about that. What was the purpose behind that? What was kind of the driving force there? What were you hoping to, like, what was the Lord teaching you in that moment? And then the second part of it is how do you work through that in ministry of people saying, but we always talk about God being so good and so faithful and so like he doesn't give, he loves and he lavishes, but yet he gives us tough crosses to bear. So talk about those two things.
So while I was on the bed, just thanking God for the good things, it was such a Holy Spirit moment, because I honestly thought in my spirit as if I was being tugged towards heaven at that point. And I thought, because that was the closest moment I was to dying, and my doctors all confirmed it. So it wasn't like I felt that and it wasn't confirmed. It was later confirmed even medically. So at that moment, I felt, me being tugged into heaven. And I was just thankful, almost like leaving all my baggage behind, like all my earthly baggage. Like, and it was things that I hadn't thought about since they probably had happened. And so I was just thanking him, because I knew at that moment, hey, all these things that I've suffered through have managed with the Lord to be made right. I am who I am because of that. I'm able to understand others. I'm able to be used. I'm able, because we give God that openness to, like, all right, use us, take us, go wherever we need to go, take us. And so I knew at that very moment that all those things, we're human. We hurt. We're allowed to hurt. We feel. And I knew at that moment it was over. I was leaving all that behind. And then when I came back, that was just a whole nother other thing.
Mhm.
Um, because I tell people, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're healed," and they would call it, it's, to some people it was a miracle, but I also like to see it as providence,
Mhm.
because God set everything up in line. I had so many antibodies that I was going to reject 98% of the population's lung, like lung allograft, whatever. And so I had to be open to high risk lungs, which was fine. I didn't know what all that entailed, but my doctors and I spoke about it, and that would open up the pool. So right off the bat, we were in trouble. We needed somebody's lungs to to be right within this window. And they had to be part of that like percentage to some extent. I had to have a complete like cleansing of my plasma exchange. And then when I woke up, we found out that the donor and I had the same exact antibodies. We were a complete match.
Oh, oh wow. Oh,
That is nearly impossible.
impossible.
So you
Wow.
see the providence of God. You see him lining things up in a way, you know. We see that if we trust God, he makes everything right in his time. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you're healed now." And I said, "I'm not quite healed, you know, but I'm healed spiritually." Because I think we focus a lot on our physical healing and we miss the fact that if we don't trust in the Lord, we're not going to heaven. And so my priority, the physical will perish, right? My soul is going where it's going. And so a lot of people had that notion of like, that's it, it's over, it's good, you're fine. And I would tell them, even if God didn't, he is still good.
And you talk about the spiritual part of it because I mean, I grew up a Christian. I was baptized in the church as an infant. So, I mean, I was always in the Word. But I think as I even personally went through my health struggles, I look back and say, but what if I hadn't had that road? Would I
Mm.
be as strong of a Christian as I am today? And sometimes you'll tell people that and they'll kind of give you the bug eyed look like, are you crazy? Like you're thankful for what you've had. And I was like, but you don't get it when you've personally been the miracle and you've witnessed God in a way that you never have before. It just awakens you to a way that you're like, but what if I didn't have this? Would I be the person I am? Would I feel the way I do? Would I love the way I do? Would I live my life the way I do? It just makes you ask yourself. And I think people that have never been in that, and not that people don't go through stuff, like you said, everybody goes through something, but are they always seeing God in it? I always try to look like, okay, well, yeah, this might be difficult. God, I really don't want to go through this. And like I've even said, but God, can't you use somebody else right now? Like this month, can I get a break? And he's like, no, not yet. and
Not yet, Heather.
and so it's like I think it's such a power to being able to go through what we go through and look and say, but I'm not bitter. But I see you, God.
Yeah.
Because that's it just reminds you of even like the Bible times of, you know, like the blind being able to see, the deaf being able to hear. Maybe he didn't take our CF on the operating table with our old lungs, but he renewed us in a way that we could live our life to see him in a way that we didn't see when we were 5 years old.
Yeah. I love that you say that because there is such a, we are privy to a way that the Lord works that if you were not sick, you wouldn't see. And I hate saying that because I don't want to seem like we have this privilege to God. But it's not that. It's when you lean in on him and you're at the suffering that all of us here share. You
Mm.
know, he shows up in ways, like you said, like people would not believe. And we get the first, you know, we get VIP access to that because we're the ones suffering on the table. And he shows up to us to comfort us. And that's what makes those experiences real. And that's how we know what we know. We've had that experience with God, the living God, that we can't deny. Nobody can tell us, oh, he's not real. We'd be like, you should have seen what happened here, you know?
Yeah.
So we have that that ability to see him because we trust him and we're in vulnerable positions. We're in very, very vulnerable positions that if you look at the gist of it, he's the one that holds us together.
Hmm.
So we get to see that.
If you weren't sick, you couldn't see. Did you just hear what you just said? If you weren't sick, you couldn't see. Like that's the title of this. Because I mean, if you weren't, you couldn't see the goodness. If you weren't, you couldn't see the difficulty. You couldn't see the shaping that was happening in those moments. So, all right, the last question, and then I'll talk about the champions too. What has it been like for your husband? Because we talk about, you know, for us, or we live it every day, and those that we love live it with us, but it's a totally different component because we're living it, eating, breathing, and sleeping it. They're just kind of coming along, and sometimes it's harder even on them because we're just like, just let us be, and then they're over here going, but I'm struggling too. How has that been like for you?
My husband's very supportive.
Mm.
Um, we've had a very good team around us to support us. Our church family has just been very present throughout the whole process. Our family has shown up. They're scattered around Florida, but they've shown up. And for him, it's been, we talk about it, and he lets me know that it was really hard on him. Um, the night that I went in for transplant, and my husband's a very calm and very stable personality. And so the night that we came in for transplant, the doctors came in and they're like, your white count's at, it was like through the roof. And he told me, the doctor had said, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do this or not. And he walked out and my husband started pacing. And my husband, I know when he paces, he is nervous or anxious, but that's not even a common thing. And so him pacing got me going. And so when the doctor walked back in, I looked at the doctor and I said, are we doing this or not? Because I'll sign whatever I have to sign. Like we are trying, we're dying, even if we're trying, but we're not going to not try because then I'm dying for sure. And my husband's he's been a champ. He's human. He gets tired. He needs his sleep. But talk about pushing me in the wheelchair. He's done it. I mean, he had to say goodbye to me, you know? And thank God I was able to come back to fight. But he's really, he's been a good sport.
And it
He's been
probably helps him grow spiritually as well, being able to kind of be in the fight
right.
together and see what God does for your life and what He's done for your life as a marriage and stuff. So I imagine that, yes, he's human, but it all probably empowers him in a way too to say, okay, we got this, we're doing this. And so I think it's just wonderful you even have such a support system because I know we both have that, but unfortunately, so many people don't. And I look at what we have to go through. I'm like, how do you do it without a support system? I mean, because it is just, I say it's mental, physical, and emotional. And it's some of the hardest things you'll ever face and the thoughts you have to have. And, the what ifs. I think sometimes the what ifs alone are worse than the actual thing you're going through itself. And in those times, you kind of feel like, well, is this ever going to get better? And then once it does, you're like, it did get better, So I think it's just so wonderful, your entire testimony, just from a childhood, being, immigrating to the U.S., getting a care. Like you said, God is just in every step of the way. And now look where you are today. I just think it's fantastic. And I know Champ wants to ask this question that he loves to ask people because I think you'll give a really, really good answer to this one. So, Champ, you want to ask it?
Oh, she will. She will. She's captured my attention. What does it mean to you to be a champion for Christ in and amongst the midst of what you've been through?
It means that I tell the truth. that no matter what, wherever I'm at, whatever I look like, I have to tell the truth. And the truth is that he's God and we are here temporarily, and that everybody needs to just keep looking at him. And it doesn't matter like what who I lose and what I look like, and I'm here to tell the truth. I knew the minute God brought me back when I woke up, I looked at Tony and the first thing I said was, I know why he brought me back. And Tony was like, you do? Like he's expecting some like chemical, medication induced answer. And I said, yes, because he knew I'd tell the truth.
And he knew that he was not done with your story. There was
Yeah.
so much more for you to do. And just what a testimony and what a miraculous spirit you have. And as I said, I can tell you have the Holy Spirit in you, and I think that's such a gift that the way you can converse with people and tell that truth, and you just put it out there and you say, look, this is me. I'm a child of God. I want to shout it from the rooftops. And as you said, no matter what you look like, no matter what you're going through, He's God. And if we just trust,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's really hard. I think that's what people struggle with most. It's not necessarily that there is a God, it's giving up that control to
Yeah.
say, I'm going to trust when I can't see what lies ahead. And I tell people all the time that's just what faith is trusting when you can't see. And there's a lot of times I feel like we're blind because we can't see what tomorrow brings in 6 months from now. And even down to people that maybe they're worried about their finances or their job or their marriage or their friendships or their daily life or their health. Everybody has worries, but it's so hard sometimes just to simply trust because we know He's a good God, but is He going to do what we're asking? And I think sometimes when we pray, I mean, I'm sure you were praying before transplant, like, God, please don't let me really have to go through that. And then He said, just kidding. I'm going to make you better just for a short time. And then say, never mind, I'm changing the plan. You're getting a transplant, but it's going to be even better after that. So I think God works in mysterious ways and does have a sense of humor. Not that He wants us to suffer, but kind
He
of
knows.
He pulls us in and He says, oh,
Yeah.
you just thought that was over, but now I'm going to put you on this path. And a lot of times it's a better path than we ever could imagine. And so I want to thank you for just being vulnerable and sharing such an amazing story. And I know Champ has enjoyed this as well. And I'm going to give him the honor of wrapping it up today. And I'm just so excited that you wanted to come on here and share because I know people are going to really be blessed by hearing this.
Sorry. Thank
I
you.
just the nuggets of wisdom that I think we gained from being thankful for the difficulty. If you weren't blind, you couldn't see. And I'm here to tell the truth. And as you were talking about what it means to tell the truth, I was sitting here thinking, and being in a season where trying to figure out what is truth, in a culture where truth is this truth, his truth, her truth, a little bit of truth scattered here, there. What is truth? And that we serve a God who is so available, so present, and ready to heal, but ready for us to share the truth. And y'all, MJ did that today, and we're glad that you joined us. And I hope that you will join us next week for the next installment of the Champions Podcast. Thank you again, MJ, for your story. Heather, and take it away. Y'all, God bless. Have a great week.